Mountain King. To look upon the Mountain King is to see the primal essence of the troll, hunger, rage, and strength of nature. Seeking to satisfy an incomprehensible appetite, Mountain Kings walk Kane again after millennia of quiescence, shaking the ground with their tread and sundering granite with their roars. Trollkin legend describes Mountain Kings with fearful reverence. The tales speak of time of plenty for the Trollkin throughout Kane. Those Trollkin respected and feared their full-blood troll cousins and kept their distance from the greatest among them, the Mountain Kings, which were already ancient in those nearly forgotten days. The stories of the Mountain Kings were the first trolls to emerge from the stony ground, given life by the harsh joining of Dunya and the Devourer Worm. They kept largely to the remote mountains, far from where the first Trollkins appeared. In time, however, Trollkin populations began to spread and intrude upon the Mountain Kings' territory. The encroaching Trollkins enraged the Mountain Kings beyond all measure. The primal brutes incited one another with howls that echoed across the mountain chains, and even those in remote regions came forth to slaughter. Like emissaries of the worm, the Mountain Kings smashed and devoured all in their path, their blinding hunger overcoming any sense of kinship with the other troll species. The Trollkins saw that in time the great trolls would devour not only their people, but the entirety of the world. An ancient epic describes the gathering of Trollkins, chieftains, warriors, and shamans who sought to subdue the Mountain Kings. They ultimately succeeded, though the means they employed are poorly recorded and even less understood. Somehow the shamans discovered a way to forge chains infused with spiritual energies that could restrain the great beast, and the Trollkins entombed their enormous cousins within the mountain peaks. Many Trollkins died to bring the Mountain Kings to their rage-filled burrows, which were marked with great rune-inscribed stones warning against future disturbances. At first, the Mountain Kings stormed beneath the earth, consuming stones in their hunger and causing the earth to quake. Eventually, they fell into a restless torpor, their turbulent dreams filled with images of hunting and feeding. When they stirred in their sleep, avalanches and mudslides plagued the slopes above them. As ages passed, the Mountain Kings slowly faded into myth. Few Trollkins dreamed they still lay chained underground. Their existences was unproven until Madrak Ironhide and Harlock Doomshaper, pressed in desperation, set out to harness their tremendous might. At no small cost, the two succeeded in nearly unthinkable quest, bringing the first reawakened Mountain King down from the Wormwall Mountains. The Trollkins strive to control these immense and ravenous beasts, which make little distinction between friend and foe. Even the greatest shamans must take care in their presence, using the enchanted chains to still dangle from these creatures' hulking bodies to forestall their hunger between battles. The Mountain Kings are truly primeval beings, so closely connected to the essence of creation that their tissue continually spawns small whelps, which they ignore until hunger calls. A Mountain King evokes terror in all who behold it. It lopes forward to fill its fathomless belly, an urge that grows even stronger when the creature is injured. Uneasy Trollkin watching such staggering rampages must wonder at the price paid to ensure the survival of their people. And these things are terrifying and ginormous, even by gargantuan standards. Of course, all gargantuans are enormous, but this guy literally has a mountain on his back growing out of it because he has literally been living in a mountain for millennia. So that actually makes sense, since all Trollkin seem to pull a lot of the environmental stuff they're in for a long time into their forms. But yeah. Just seeing one of these things on the field, it looks like a moving mountain that happens to be attached to a ginormous troll. I do not pity anybody who has to go up against these guys. I wouldn't want to have to go up against these guys, but that's just me. But let's see how much strength they have to knock out as we go over their Mark 3 to Mark 4 changes, shall we? Alrighty, and as always, we're going to start with his stat line. He's a speed 5. He is a mat of 6. He is a rat of 5. He has a defense 9 because hitting a mountain is never difficult. He has an armor of 19. He has a fury of up to 5. And his threshold is 6. So he very much goes on the killing spree if he has any fury on him, basically. The abilities he has breakthrough, so he can move through other models without losing his ability to attack. He has slam, trample, headbutt, pathfinder, and dual attack. Which makes sense since he is a ginormous war beast. His abilities have changed a little bit. So they removed assault, but they gave him They gave him dual attack, which makes sense. He still has his bulldoze ability, so when this model is base to base with an enemy model during its normal movement, it can push that model up to 2 inches directly away from it. A model can be pushed by bulldoze only once per turn. Bulldoze has no effect when the model makes a trample power attack. Makes sense. Next ability he still has, snacking, because he's still a troll. When this model boxes a living model with a melee attack, it can choose to remove the box model from play, and when it does, it can remove D3 damage points from itself. And then his last one he has is whelp shedding. Whelp shedding, when this model suffers damage from an enemy attack immediately after the attack is resolved, you can place a troll whelp into play within base to base of this model. One of the things they removed from this guy into Mark IV is something called a kill shot. So what kill shot did in Mark III, once per activation, when an enemy model is destroyed or removed from play as a result of a melee attack made by this model during its activation, immediately after the attack is resolved, this model can make one basic ranged attack, which it feels like he was throwing the dead model at people, but I'm not entirely sure how that's played out, so that's probably why they removed it, because it sounds like a kind of an odd move, especially whenever we start going over his normal weapons. So maybe it was more of, he killed something and then he roared in excitement. I don't know. But let's go over his weapons. He has Deathly Roar. And what Deathly Roar is a rat of 5, spray 12, which is an increase from its original spray 10 template. So he's got an extra 2 inches. And because of the change in how sprays work, if you have anybody that can increase the range of his melee or his ranged weapon, it actually increases your spray length. So if you have somebody who can give him snipe, you can get him up to a spray 15. And at a rate of fire 1 and a POW 16, that is some heavy damage. And he also has gunfighter, so he can use this in melee, which makes sense since this is a roar. The ability of this weapon also changed. Originally it was Deafen. So originally it was a model hit with this weapon suffers -2 defense and cannot give or receive orders. I can see why that was removed, since orders are no longer a thing in Mark IV. It got moved over to critical paralysis. On a critical hit, a living model hit has its defense reduced to 5 and cannot run, charge, or make slam or trample power attacks for 1 round, which is even more detrimental, because if you can reduce their defense to 5, if they survive being hit with a POW 16, which most units aren't going to survive that very well, you can really kind of ding them up for or you can really queue them up for doing a lot of meaty fist attacks, which is our next weapon, meaty fists, or big meaty fists, because you can't get any bigger than a gargantuan's meaty fist. It is a mat 6, range 2, POW 19, and of course it is an open hand weapon, so he can throw and do all the fun stuff with those. So fantastic there. No abilities, it's a meaty fist. It do what meaty fists do. His animus, because everybody has an animus in the War Beast. He used to have something called Primal. Primal target living faction War Beast gains +1 strength and mat for 1 round. Its original cost was 2, range 6, and it was only a 1 round duration. It got moved over to Rage, which I feel like Rage is a little bit nicer. Well, and because they couldn't use Primal because Strength no longer exists. But Rage that he got is still a cost 2, range 6. He can cast it on himself because he is a friendly faction war beast. Target friendly faction war beast gains +2 to its damage rolls for 1 round. So if you put this guy with, say other dire trolls, and they're all increasing each other's stuff by, damage, this guy's swinging with a power 21 if he rages himself, or if somebody else gives him a rage. So if you even have anybody, put this guy up to 11, not only is he gargantuan, but he can just walk through most creatures pretty easily, especially if he can get those critical paralysis, which I always suggest always boosting any of his range attacks, just so you can fish for crits. Because reducing anybody's defense down to 5, and then removing their ability to run, charge, or make slam or trample power attacks is always a very useful thing, especially when you're attacking a War Beast or War Beast. So very scary dude. Definitely a little bit more basic than some of the other gargantuans we're going to be going over with the Trollkin, but he does what he needs to do, and he does it very, very well.